Our beloved 8% Hard AF Seltzer is now live in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Ohio, Montana, Idaho, Oregon, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Illinois. Go to hardafseltzer.com today. Click on the store locator and enter your city or zip to find the closest location nearest you.
We are gold for energy. Send it. Incoming. Put the money in the bag, man.
As I said, your paycheck is your thank you.
What's going on back there? This is awesome! Welcome to Earth! No. Who's flying the plane? Get cockpit. Go. God.
Black Rifle Energy, dropping near you.
Welcome to Drinkin Bros, presented by OmahaSteaks.com. Yeah, welcome to Drinkin Bros, kids. Friday afternoon show, having some Hard AF Seltzer. If you're out there for the weekend and you want to get some meats for the 4th of July, go to OmahaSteaks.com. Massive blowout 4th of July sale. Promo code Drinkin Bros gets you an extra $45 off, and 50% off the entire site over there. So take advantage of it. And then grab a 12-pack of Hard AF Seltzer. Delco County, Delaware County, or however you guys call it, is
Delaware County.
It might put us out of business, by the way. My God, man. That Aston market, whatever that is, they've blown through 200 cases, and I've never seen anything like it. Never seen anything like it. It's a tiny store. It's like half the size of this fucking building, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, but we're all scumbags.
I know. And the owner is a Penn State University alumni. So there you go. Hashtag we are. Occasionally we do some good on this show, and we try to help people out. Today's is definitely going to be one of those days. D'Anthony, who's our guest today?
Stefano Sivandos. I think I said that all right. Is that right?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, there you go.
Sifandos.
He's good looking.
He's an Australian man by way of Greece and Italy. Is that
Yeah, that's right.
You don't say.
Yeah.
You don't say. God damn it. I'm glad my wife's not here today. There's guests that I'm just like, don't come in today. Like, don't pop by. No need for a lunch. No nothing.
You don't want her to hear about trauma today?
No, it's not the trauma I'm worried about. It's my own trauma. If she looks at you, where it's just like, okay, gonna pack them on up, you know? Gonna just wrap all my shit up around a stick with a polka dot blanket and just hop on down the bunny trail with this fucking jacked, good-looking human who's very intelligent. No, but thank you for being here today.
Thank you, man. It's debated about the intelligent piece, but we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see about your intelligence coming up. Tell us what you specialize in.
Trauma.
Psychology, relationships, all of it.
Yeah.
80% of our audience is military-based, and a lot of them are dealing with trauma. As a non-vet, I've also dealt with trauma as well. So it's a universal topic, but I think even more so in your community.
It's something that we don't address much, that most of the people that go through military, first responder shit and develop some kind of issue had issues before they even got there, right? That were never resolved. Yeah. Primarily from dad and childhood. And it's not to be like reverse Freudian or anything, but we'll get into it a little bit, just about most of it was out of ignorance or necessity, right? But the way that masculinity was presented to us in a way that we could emulate 1,000 years ago versus 25 years ago is very different. It has to, like, it used to be part of everyday life. It was intrinsic to the human experience because we had to stay alive. We had to actually fight the elements to stay alive. Now we're comfortable, so it has to be a little bit more intentional, and we didn't realize that until a little bit later.
Right.
I guess is the way to say that.
Yeah, and it certainly is different. And just seeing this from a parent side, because I've got 3 kids right now, how I was raised with 2 pretty good dads, even though they got divorced. I wasn't one of those kids who had any trauma from the divorce or any of that stuff. Very fortunate that I had 2 pretty good dads in my life. But as the years have gone on and I became a father, and I'm now with other parents and their children, Dan is correct, man. I mean, there's a phrase called helicopter parenting, or gentle parenting and things like that have popped up that it's like, why do we need those words ahead of just the word parenting?
Oh man, what a big question. So let me attest to something. So for me, I've got a little girl. She's 3 years old. And not so much gentle parenting, but the helicopter parenting piece I can relate to. Every time she goes and maybe falls down, even though I know it's good for her to fall down, right? I know it's good for her to fall down and pick herself back up and learn her way and get her nervous system and vestibular system in line with what's happening in her life. I gasp. I get so concerned, and I look at that, and it's fucking funny to look at too. You'll see me. I still let her do her thing. I know she's going to fall as long as she's not going to do any serious damage. I let her do her thing, but I can't help the reactive part of me that just gasps for air. And I notice, and my wife laughs at me, I notice though that came from what I was exposed to. So we don't have to call it trauma, right? We just have to call it experiences and how our nervous systems experienced those experiences, right? And for me, my dad, well, even though my dad was super violent with me, he was very much like that. He wouldn't want me to get hurt if I fell or something like that, if I was exploring the world. But at the same time, he was very happy to, throw hands. And so I noticed myself.
In a positive way or a negative way? Forgive me.
No, negative way.
Okay.
Like it was violence, uncertainty, violence.
I don't know if it was
volatility.
Spankings or.
Yeah, all of that and more, right?
I got you.
Yeah. And my mum was a little bit like that too. There was just violence and volatility in my household. But sort of the paradox of it was he didn't want me to fall down. He was overprotective and wrapped me up in cotton wool at the same time. So it was very, very confusing. So to answer your question, like where does that helicopter parenting come from? I can give you an experience of me. Like I have the urge to be a helicopter parent. I know that it's not necessarily healthy, but the urges that I have for that have come directly from my upbringing. Now, my ability to not be a helicopter parent in those moments, more often than not, comes from my desire to break old patterns. In other words, actually address some of the intense experiences I had so I don't have to repeat them as an adult.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense. And since you shared a story about that, I'll share another one for me that's super embarrassing that I've never told. 2 years ago, I'm at home for Christmas. I'm at my parents' house, and I see Jagger, my middle child now, but he was about to fall down the stairs. And wasn't paying attention. I could see it happening. I'm sitting on the couch, and I get up and sprint as hard as I can just to save him. Broke my big toe. Clean in half. Because I'm in a panic trying to get to him, and I couldn't. The toe snapped, I fall down, he falls down the stairs, everything else. Same thing. I know he's going to be fine with, the surroundings and all that other stuff, but still, that instinct is there. You can't stop it. And yeah, you've got to try to understand that they're going to be fine at the end of the day, but I don't know if that'll ever happen,
There's the instinct to be protective is not a bad instinct. Mm-hmm. Just like the instinct to eat food will also keep you alive. But if you eat too much, you become a fat dummy.
Right.
So it's like, what are you doing to regulate your own emotions? The 5-year-old can't. They haven't developed the ability yet to regulate their emotions. So if you put another person who can't regulate their emotions in that scenario, good fucking
I know.
luck.
So he was 3 at the time, and obviously I was 30. So I'm kidding. No, but he was 3 at the time, and when I got up, it's just, dude, and I panicked and all that other stuff, and that's what happened to me. So when I went to go, pick up some bandages for CVS and for him, I also had to get shit for myself, which was also embarrassing at that time. But yeah, things like that where I know kids need to get hurt. I know they need to learn. And after that, by the way, never had an issue with the stairs ever again the rest of his life. He learned, for real. And that was the overall lesson that obviously I didn't know as a parent until 2 years later. But you have to commit to that and understand it, because my first child wasn't like that. So
second child's always the risk taker.
Right. But I had no preparation for that. You see what I'm saying? So
read all the books in the world, it doesn't make a difference.
every single page of every book you could read, and it does not make a difference.
Zero.
Bob,
Your
is
kids
your-
are going to be completely different.
Bob, is your second a psycho yet?
Middle child, the second son is absolutely the one more likely to take risk.
It's so weird how often that happens, right?
Yeah.
Like first child is intelligent and risk averse, and the second child, you intelligent sometimes or not, but always a fucking lunatic. It's so weird.
It is, and
I'm sure there's a reason for it.
There is, and we have a great, I love my kids. I love my wife. I got a great relationship and all that other stuff. So it's just something dumb that just happened. But I will say this, him falling down the stairs, I don't know if that's kind of pushed him in the direction he's in, because he's one of the toughest kids I've ever met. And it's not like I'm one of those dads who demands him to be tough, be a fucking man, do this and this and this. He just is. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's not. But parenting is something that I think everybody struggles with on a day-to-day basis. And then, as you said, if you do the right or wrong thing, that can lead into you being a shitty parent, turning that kid into an adult who's then going to go on and do fucked up shit. And that's where the trauma comes in.
I think probably more common than producing a fucked up adult is producing an adult that just doesn't know what to do. Right? I think that's where most of the children of boomers and early Gen Xers are right now, because for the divorce rate certainly went up, but for the most part, people's dads were around. I think like 85% of people's dads were around.
Yeah.
Right? So, but dad wasn't doing X, Y, or Z. It's like we for a very long time, nature demanded that we behave a certain way, and then we defeated nature to some degree, and we now 2-3 generations into that don't know how to behave anymore, right?
Yeah.
And that's where dudes like this come in who can kind of break down. You have to be intentional about it now, right?
Yes, you do.
It's very simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
And I think, and I know we make fun of like the Antifa and the Libbies and all that other shit here, but I think that switch in the world that's going on right now, it really is from parenting. And I had a great stepdad and all that other stuff. I know the divorce rate is way higher now, and that could potentially be part of the issue. But still, you can still be a good parent and be divorced. Like all of that is possible.
Yeah.
And I think it is affecting this generation that is coming up, or that we're seeing now on TV and on TikTok and Twitter and everything else. And it's because of the trauma they had as a kid, and now they're releasing it on like, hey, fuck this Tesla, fuck my city, fuck my building.
But trauma isn't just getting beat or dad not being around, right? So wounds can be created from a lack of something that you need as well, right? Like think of it as being socially malnourished to some degree, even though dad was there. Maybe he's a nice guy and not abusive, but he just didn't do the things that taught you what you need to do later on, right?
Yeah.
Because he didn't know he was supposed to, because he took it for granted, because his dad just did them and he learned it that way. But now nature, like the civilization we live in now, doesn't require that you do those things intentionally anymore. And we just stopped doing them. So he sees dad flipping through his phone and watching TV instead of cutting fucking firewood, right? Or whatever it is. So if let's get into it. If there's a problem statement for I guess the expression of masculinity in today's West, what would you say the problem statement is, if you can reduce it to something like that?
Yeah, and where does it begin? Like, what age does that begin, and where do you notice it when you talk to trauma patients and things like that?
Where it begins is difficult to know because it's different for everyone. I mean, it can begin in utero, man. Like, you think about that. Think about if a woman's physiology is way off because she's under stress, because maybe she's in a place where there's great poverty, she doesn't know where, she's malnourished herself, or she's under the threat of violence. How her nervous system is responding in the world is going to impact that baby, right? If
is that true?
Well, of course,
I've heard that forever, but you don't know.
It's true on many levels. It's true on how the nervous system imprints on that baby's nervous system and how that baby's nervous system is developed, and then their tolerances in the world, like how sensitive they are to the world, how they deal with, how resilient they are. Essentially, if she's taking substances as an example, that alcohol, drugs, whatever, cigarettes, that influences the development of the baby physiologically, which lays down a foundation for their psychosocial movement in the world, like how they relate to other people, how they relate to themselves, how they just think about themselves, right? Their self-worth. So if I go back to, it was a couple of questions that you asked around where does it begin, how do we work with it? Man, trauma, like you mentioned earlier, it's very complex, right? Meaning that it's not just about the event or the experience that happens, but it's how our nervous systems interpret that experience, right? And what we make it mean, then psychologically, the stories that we tell ourselves about that, and then the action that we take around that. So, for example, you know, one of the things you mentioned, and Tifa and whatever it was, but the challenge that we have is that we are going to the worship of false idols outside of ourselves because we haven't been exposed. When I say we, I'm generalizing here, right?
Sure.
We haven't been exposed to regulated human beings that we trust. So now we're looking to trust others because we're relational beings and we need other people to mirror back to us who we are and what we want and to validate us and all that. These are just basic human needs. Like we need to be loved, accepted, appreciated, respected, needed. And there's ways to pursue that. You can pursue it in unhealthy ways that come from like a compensation or a wound, or you can pursue it from a really healthy sense of self. Like your self-worth is intact, you know who you are, you've got boundaries, you don't fuck around with people that don't interest you or that you're trying to impress, you're just you in the world, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of what we see in these maybe large groups forming in the world or people just disorientated with life and with self and not being grounded in who they are is because they never had an experience of that growing up. Mm. It usually starts from a very young age. So our formative years, I mean, there's conversations of when that ends, but just say 0 to 12, right? For boys particularly, it's a little older maybe because our brain forms differently, but more importantly, socially, you know, we spoke about this earlier around rites of passage. Right? We need very deliberate rites of passage. We need men in our lives to guide us and lead us to go play, you know, put us in the forest for 4 days and be by ourselves and at the end of that have other men like, you know, my father's friends and uncles and so forth to meet us and greet us and be with us. There's something very powerful in that that's missing from our society. And so, again, we spoke about this earlier. When a boy is lost and he's full of adrenaline and full of testosterone surging through his body as he's becoming a man, he's going to go and make up his own let me get validated by the world. And it's usually going to be extreme because of what's happening in his physiology. He's going to be going really hard on that. And that's usually, again, not always, but I'm going to prove to the world, aka I'm going to prove to dad that I'm worthy of something. And again, extremity makes the loudest noise. You know, steal a car, arson, go hurt people, whatever.
Yeah.
Win at any cost. You know, be the big dog on the street.
And it happens, like you can see it in different points of your life. It affects you differently. So if you're a 35-year-old man going through the same kind of purposelessness, I guess, if you want to call it that, then your rage is going to turn inward and you're going to become severely depressed, right? That's how it works. That's what, I mean, the one thing Freud got right is that depression is rage turned inwards. So, you know, when you're going through these, it's very obvious what's happening. The way that we need to interdict it, I think is obvious as well, but people tend to disagree. It's like one of the ways. So there are all these like weird beliefs that we have about the way that we're meant to treat kids as they're growing up. For example, right? Like a lot of people, there's a big push in the late 90s through like the middle 2010s about putting kids in timeout and stuff like that so they can emotionally regulate. But in reality, the kid doesn't have the ability to emotionally regulate. And in the moment that they need you the most, you've sent them away. That's what they remember, right? That's completely unacceptable, right? If you phrase it that way, it's obvious that that's completely unacceptable. But that was the standard for a very long time. Like all these kids. So what are they taught to do? They're taught to either suppress their emotions entirely, right? Or they're taught that nobody really cares about it, so I have to care about myself, and it advances this super ego, basically. Like either it results in nihilism or extremism. It's one of the two, right? Which is completely the wrong answer. Human beings need to be moderated, right? And everything you do, you need to be moderated. So it's a big problem, and the fact that I don't think that most of the dads who caused this problem did it on purpose. I don't think they were bad people. I think they were ignorant for sure, right? But we're always like, when things change rapidly, there's always a period of ignorance where we have to learn, like, oh, can you fucking believe we did that? You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, 25 years from now, we'll look at some of the tech we're using right now and be like, God, we were fucking dumb. Why are we doing that?
I think we were better. we're better for it, because right now it's destroying us.
Yeah, well, that's not the point, though.
Well, no. But in parenting and everything else, like everybody's wrapped up in their phones and all that other shits, and like it is a constant reminder, even kids too, with iPads and all that other shit, of like, hey, screen time. That's a big thing with parents, not only moms and dads, but the kids as well, where you're like, how much time is the right time, when to do it, what their memories are going to be like of you, and all that other shit, and yeah, it's tough, and for you in your situation, when your dad, you said, put hands on you and everything else. Did that create trauma for you? And do you look back at him as a negative influence in your life?
Not now.
Or do you look back and say, all right, this is what my dad was going through at the time, and I can kind of understand maybe something was fucked up in his own life? Or
Yeah, yes. So there's layers to that. So I'm going to go there in a second. I want to build on something that you said around, putting kids in time out. And we spoke about this, and I very much agree. And I'm going to take that a step further. Adults need the same thing, meaning adults, when they're dysregulated, all of us, nervous system's a fucking nervous system, right? When you're dysregulated, you need to be in the presence of other regulated humans to help you come back into regulation, like to come back into moderation. And then you learn how to self-soothe and moderate yourself, moderate your physiology, moderate your psychology, so you're not thinking extreme things of self-harm or hurting others and doing those things and executing on that. And then from there, we become accountable, right? And we become more confident in our ability to look after ourselves, as opposed to looking outside of ourselves, whether it's, again, the worship of false heroes or idols, right? Or looking to someone else to make us feel better by the way they behave. Like, we've got to learn to do this ourselves. I can't tell you how many adults I work with that don't know how to self-soothe. They were never taught. They were never shown. It's not about being taught. It's that they never shown, so they never got an example. They literally don't know how to do it in their bodies. They don't know how to do it in their nervous systems. That's a big challenge that we all face, right? And especially when you're exposed to extremity, whether it's a combat situation, whether you're an extreme athlete, whether you have unprocessed, unresolved trauma in your nervous system and in your psychology, and it plays out in your relationships and your social life. We have to learn to regulate ourselves.
yeah, and even that's tough though sometimes.
It is tough, sure. Yeah.
Because you've got your own stresses at work or life or whatever it is, and then trying to keep that in check, let's just say as a parent, and then going home and then going back to totally different reality than the one that you were just in. You're like, oh shit, I can't.
But tough's not impossible, right?
It's not. It's just you really have to focus and be like, all right,
You do.
I've got to shut this off right now.
You got to want. Well, it's not. Yeah,
I wouldn't
it's
shut
not
it
shutting
off.
it off. That's the thing. You don't. You want to actually deal with it.
Yeah.
You want to be with it. You want to fucking understand that part of yourself. You don't want to run from it. It's the running from it and shutting it off that actually causes more drama and more trauma and more friction and conflict in your life, because you're not embracing that part of yourself. Therefore, by default, you're fractured.
Yeah.
And when you're fractured, you're not whole. And wholeness is really the natural state that we are. Knowing who we are, loving ourselves, caring about ourselves, and backing ourselves. Like just having the confidence in who we are, that's part of wholeness, or that's wholeness. When we're fractured, we need to compensate for that very uncomfortable feeling of not being enough and not mattering or not being important. So now we start doing stupid shit.
Yeah. Like the level of medication is commensurate with the level of pain. And in this regard, medication is risky behavior, drugs, whatever, right? Or sometimes it's nihilism or shying away from society entirely, right? So cognitive behavioral therapy, which I'm sure you're familiar with, sprung out of Adlerian psychology, which is kind of the inverse of Freudian. Freudian's like, there's an external tormentor of some sort, usually your mom, but sometimes something else, and that's the problem. That's the villain in your story, and you got to find the hero in your story. And Adlerian psychology, you don't think about villains and heroes so much as you think about responsibility. Like, this is my work to do, right?
And action, right?
And
Forward
action,
momentum,
Like you've got to, So cognitive behavioral therapy will tell you, even in a group setting, like you and your wife are angry at each other for some reason, I think it's a bad idea to leave that situation.
You
right?
do?
Yes.
Why is that? Because you've been with me, by the way, and I have no problem being with the audience. Dan is with me through pretty much every aspect of life, because we travel and everything. Obviously, I work with my wife with love, but we get in fights, and I walk away. You've been a part of that, where I was just like, hey, dude, I'm just going to get out of the fucking car right now and just walk away from this situation. I don't want to say anything or do anything that I might regret, so I leave. Why is that a bad idea?
I would say that the more often you're able to stay in that position without saying or doing something that you regret, the less likely you are to ever do it again. That's cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm going to expose myself to this situation that's elevating all of my shit, and I'm going to learn to regulate it, right? And that's risky behavior. If you're in a tenuous situation with your partner, they got to be on board with that too, because it's not comfortable to be sitting there next to each other in bed, fucking pissed off. That's not comfortable.
Or in front of your friends or wherever it is. And
but you know what's less comfortable is fucking letting yourself drift farther and farther apart.
Totally.
That's way less comfortable to me.
So for me, I guess the way that I've dealt with it is in relation. We'll start with relationships, and then we'll go to parenting. Is I'll walk away for a little bit, cool off, and then go back and try to resolve the issue. It's always tough when somebody starts the fight with you, which is what happened in that case, and you're just like, oh Christ, I've got where to go.
What I would say about that is that you're the man in that situation, and this is. I've said this many times before, but you really have to understand this. This is not to excuse bad behavior or infantilize women, but men are on a 24-hour hormonal cycle, and women are on a 28-day hormonal cycle. So the thing that you experience, she experiences for 7 times as long. So if you're angry for an hour, that's 7 hours for her. If you're angry for half of the day, that means like a couple of days she's angry or upset about that thing. Right?
No shit. Is that real?
I'm not. Yes, I mean, as far as I'm aware, that's accurate. Yeah, of course. Yeah. We have
no
different
idea.
hormonal. Yeah,
no idea.
We have totally different hormonal profiles, so we interpret ourselves in the world very differently, especially emotionally.
So you're the man. Like your job is to be regulated.
Yeah.
And she by her nature is not going to be sometimes, right? So I don't like. And look, results vary, I guess. But my approach has been to stay like I see my woman angry or stressed out or something, I'm not fucking leaving. She needs me right then. Even if she's angry at me, she still needs my comfort and presence there, right? So it's probably quite a bit more uncomfortable for me because her emotions have taken control. So she's not feeling that discomfort anymore. She's just reacting. I'm the one that has to be regulated and sit in it because that's real discomfort, right? But that's your job to do.
And whenever you say regulate, by the way, I can't something about Warren G. I wish we could just
Play
no. Well, we can on YouTube. We're on YouTube today.
Yeah.
If we weren't, I would have Bob play that on every insert because that word is correct and it is very true here. And
by the way, I'm not saying don't. Like sometimes you may need to walk away. I'm not saying it's a hard line not to.
Yeah,
ever
there isn't
do
a
it.
hard line, right? So the interesting thing about that is like you were using a coping strategy, right, to deal with a difficult situation that you learned probably from a very young age, or you learned through osmosis, through witnessing your parents do it, or you just picked it up and it worked for you at some point.
You know what I learned it from, to be honest with you? It was witnessing a bad situation, not involving me or my family or anything, but somebody else's relationship where the girl ended up getting violent with him. Yeah. And it turned out real bad. And the cops came and everything else. And I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you don't
Maybe
want it to
if he would just would have walked away at that point.
Yeah.
But again, we all go back to one memory or trigger in life where you're just like, okay, cool.
So that would be known as a maladaptive coping strategy, right? Because it worked to some degree, or you made a story about it that it could have worked, right? And so your pattern around that is probably rooted in a fear of not wanting that domestic violence to happen with you, or not wanting it to escalate, say. Don't worry about domestic violence, but not to escalate. So you walk away. Now, there isn't like a one fix quick solution to that, but some things that you can do is acknowledge the pattern, and your friend is saying, hey, it's actually not healthy that you walk away. Like, here's a friend that you trust, you guys trust each other and care about each other, and he's saying, hey man, like my perspective is, why don't you stay in that a little more and try and regulate and actually really hear what she's saying. But what if you and your wife have an agreement? I would also say that you probably have, like if we look at attachment styles for a moment, there's maybe some more avoidance there that you have. And there's so many different models and theories that you can look at, right? But maybe it's easier for you to walk away. Yes, you want to come back and talk it through and work it out later, but does she actually know that? Like, does she know that's your strategy when she's in her hype, or when she's upset and really just dysregulated and sad or angry or whatever? Does she know that you're coming back?
Yeah, or like the kid, does she think every time that I experience these overwhelming emotions, he's gone?
Yeah, and does her nervous system actually trust and know that he's going to come? I know you have that intention, but if you guys have an agreement, say when you are both regulated, and say, hey, listen, sometimes when I see that, when we're arguing, all of me just wants to walk away, and that's why I'm walking away. I have the intention to come back, but I'm not trying to leave you. And you go and you make an agreement around where you guys are at.
And so that's what I say. I said, look,
there.
No matter how much we fight, I'm not going anywhere. You're the greatest person I've ever met, and this is going to go. I mean, go for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But as far as right now, I'm pissed and I'm gonna walk away and then we'll deal with this.
But in the heat, that's great.
hours.
But in the heat of it, like she may get, like, let's just say she's here now and you guys are talking. She goes, "Oh, yeah, I understand that." Like she gets that. But in the heat of it, what she's probably wanting and what her nervous system needs, based on her life experiences, maybe her quote unquote trauma or the intensity that she's experienced, right? She needs you to stay. And I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't. I'm just giving you, like, I like to play the opposite game.
By the way, you were correct. And I feel like I'm sitting with a fucking therapist right now, which I probably am.
I'm not formally a therapist, but I do. My background is in psychology.
No, you're
science.
correct, and that's the same thing she says to me. So
what her brain understands and what her body understands are not the same thing. Yeah, that's just like a child, right? You can, like, Candace told me about this actually. Kids under 5 don't hear the word "don't." Have you ever experienced this?
Yeah.
Like, if you say "don't do that," they'll go do it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
They don't hear the word "don't." They can't conceptualize "do not." It's just "do" and then the thing. You basically told them to go do the stupid shit, right?
Right.
But that's, again, not to infantilize. Dudes do that shit too. We hear what we want to hear. Let's be real about that.
Yeah.
But like your body understands shit that your brain doesn't. And your body's really, like, your brain communicates to your body in a way that your thoughts don't conceptualize. You understand? So like somebody like me that's done the stuff that I've done, I'm seeing threats and shit that you don't probably pick up on, but just because of experience.
Correct.
But I'm not thinking about it. My brain just does that shit.
I know, which is, as a dude, and we never tell dudes anything, or friends or anything else. That's also why I enjoy you as a co-host, is everywhere we go, I already know that's what you're doing, so I don't have to think about it. And that's great. I mean, every city we go to, it's like, all right, awesome, man. I know whatever the fuck happens here, he'll have an immediate response to it, and then we're good wherever we go. And that's great. And you're saying women need the same thing.
I'm saying every human needs the same thing. And a feminine-bodied woman, especially in conflict, challenge, emotional disarray, definitely wants that. But every human wants that. Just think human, dysregulated, they need regulation, end of story. I would say, and this is what I find in so many couples that I work with as well, the thing that your woman is asking of you, I'm speaking specifically to you now, and to me, to all of us, the thing that she's asking of you is actually really beneficial for you if you really look at it. Like, think about that for a second. She's asking you to stay in the fight.
Yeah.
Right? She's asking you to just be present. Imagine for a moment if you're able to do that more and more and more, and your friend is actually asking you to do that and saying, hey, here's some benefit if you do. Imagine what kind of character you build. But even more importantly, imagine what, for lack of a better term again, trauma, you're able to unwind and really process and stop it from controlling your life by actually building the resilience and the somatic space, the somatic being, to be in the presence of that discomfort. Imagine how you become a better human, a better businessman, a better podcaster, a better friend, a better father, like all of it.
Unflappable.
That's the benefit of being in relationship and intimacy, right? Because our partners will ask of us, we're hearing, oh, she wants this for herself. But if we pause for a second, the thing that she's actually asking is complementary to the thing we need to do to be a better fucking human. And there's 99.9% of the time, 100% of the time, that's accurate.
Oh, man, the fact that you just said that, she's going to clip this on her own. She's
you're lucky she doesn't watch this.
She doesn't watch it?
No, she does.
Sometimes.
She
It
does.
depends on the show.
And she'll clip this segment, and the
Just
next
play it
fight,
all
she'll
throughout
be
the
like,
house.
dude, it's going to be,
Just
yeah,
play it. Play it on the government watching Alexa and all of that. Just play it constantly on repeat.
I know. Because, God. Yeah, that's what she says all the time. She's like, hey, dude, I would rather just go through this. And I was like, man, I just need a second here.
So,
I need a moment,
and that's, by the way, though, that's fair that you need that. But what's happening is, in that moment, more than likely, your nervous system is time traveling back to a time in your life or times in your life where you were overloaded and you needed a second. But what you need to remind yourself in that moment is that you're a relational, mature adult now that is far more skillful, far more adept, far more capacity for holding bigger things than you were when you were 5 or 10 or 20, right?
Yeah.
And reminding yourself of that, breathing slow, regulating your physiology keeps you in that space, and you're less controlled by reactive patterns and more governed by the empowered self you want to be. There's a lot of power in that, man. and a lot of gift for all of you. And I hear the devotion that you have to your wife. Like one of the biggest things.
Well, I thought the power was actually walking away, so that way you can diffuse the situation, and then.
In some instances it is, but I don't think in this instance.
It's not. And
And
you're
you
right.
know that,
Everything you just said, well, because that's what she says. So it's like, and it's little things. And like, again, I have a great relationship. I'm super lucky, for real.
I feel that.
And kids and all that stuff. So yeah, but you always want to learn and try to be better. And that's what's great about this job is I get to talk to you about it today instead of paying $500 an hour for it. So that rocks.
Awesome.
But let's go back to trauma then, and how this affects kids and everything moving forward in life as a whole here. Yeah. What are some things that you can avoid as a parent and try to make the right decisions to avoid that trauma that will come back later in life?
Yeah.
Because like you're saying, and Dan, you said this earlier, a lot of these problems that you have later in life can be traced back to childhood.
Yeah, and but they're not always. It's not always that you're the victim of abuse or something like that.
No, not at all.
Sometimes
Big
it's
T,
just like,
little T trauma,
yeah,
right?
sometimes
Yeah.
it's just stuff that didn't happen when it was supposed to, and you didn't see the way to do it right. I mean, if you want to break it down mechanically, nobody ever showed you how to tie your shoes right, and you do it a weird way, and then you meet somebody that does it right. You're like, what the fuck have I been doing this whole time?
Yeah.
It's really that simple, right?
Yes.
But still, it leaves
imprint.
an imprint, a dysregulation in the way that you handle your social situations from a somatic standpoint. Like your physiology is controlling that situation instead of your mind, and you can't allow that. Which is interesting because your mind can train your physiology in the same way that your physiology can train your mind, right? Like your amygdala spikes and your adrenaline goes up because you see something that makes you angry or afraid. You can learn to control that stuff. That's what we do, right? Mm-hmm. We go through the shoot house, stuff pops out, people are throwing flashbangs at us. It's to train us not to overreact in that situation. You can do the same thing in your personal life. Obviously, the stakes are quite a bit lower, but the principle is the same.
It is, and again, you went through violence. You're saying obviously there's little things too, like I don't know, not hitting the game-winning home run or getting on base or whatever. What do you tell kids to at least limit the amount of trauma they have growing up, and hopefully they become great human beings?
You mean as a parent?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I mean as a parent, the best thing I can do is just continue to keep myself in check. Like continue to show my daughter what a regulated nervous system looks like, especially under adversity, because it's going to happen in life, like or tension or whatever it may be, and not be overreactive and too big. Not that I don't want her to experience range. And again, like if I am reactive, I'm human, right? I have a propensity to be that anyway. If she experiences just in her world like big things, such as she's at an age now where she wants to make friends, and as a daddy, like, oh man, I know what can happen because I understand children, and children sometimes don't want to play with my daughter, not because there's something wrong with her, because they're in their own world, because they're fucking
They're
kids.
fucking weirdos, dude.
Yeah.
That's what I deal with. Like we'll go to a playground. Yeah, there's a lot of weird fucking kids out there because parenting's getting worse.
And by the way,
these little fuckers are weird as shit.
But every single one of the kids is weird. You just don't notice because it's your kid.
Yeah.
Right?
No, here's the thing. I'm
not saying they're eating boogers and doing weird shit. I'm just saying every kid is odd.
I'm aware of it. I'm just saying in this current iteration that's going on right now, because Jesse, my wife, and I raise our kids pretty normally, where it's just like, hey, go do this. Like you're doing this and this and this. Like do it on your own. Whereas like there's kids that have problems forming sentences.
Yeah.
At like 6.
Yeah, sure.
And you're just like,
well, they're living in dysregulated
but their
environments.
parents
man.
are rich too, where you're just like, Jesus
To
Christ.
them, I mean, money doesn't fucking mean you're intelligent and you're
Yeah,
emotionally
that's
regulated, and you even care enough to actually be present for your children just because you got money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just caring, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's a big part of it. But in order to, expand our capacity to care and be deliberate and intentional, I'm of the belief that we need to clear the clutter that blocks us from accessing that, which is usually unprocessed, unresolved trauma, right? And again, that doesn't mean that we continue to process and go down the rabbit hole. I mean, we spoke about this with Candace, right? Like, no, don't over-process. Don't go to the ayahuasca ceremony every weekend. Like, give yourself space. Like,
Yeah.
it just means being deliberate and intentional and having practices such as being more self-reflective, taking ownership of your actions and your behavior. You asked me about what I do for my baby girl. Like, I've got to be regulated for her. I've got to be present for her. And again, it doesn't mean that, and if she experiences hurt from me or from someone else, how quickly can I genuinely, so she actually feels it's real, repair with her emotionally and physically? Like that's the best thing that we can do. And man, the rest is fucking up to God. Like it's not, we can't control everything. Here's the thing, we are going to experience intensity in our lives, irrespective of how amazing our parents are and the utopia that we grow up in, whatever. Like that's just life. So you're going to have stuff to deal with as an adult, but you're going to be better equipped to deal with it the more regulated and deliberate your parent is. So all I can do is learn from my parents. You ask me, and be better, right? Be better than I was even yesterday. You asked me about my dad. I'm 43 years of age. I've gone through iterations of my relationship to my father. I'm at a place with him now where I can get to that place genuinely because I've moved it through my body. I've animated that shit that was stuck for so long because I was so scared of him. I can get to a place now and say, I understand my father. I understand the trauma he went through. It's not placation. It's not spiritual bypassing. It's not bullshit. It feels real. But there was a time where I was like, oh yeah, I understand my father. But I was so angry at him and I was so angry at the world. And I took it out on everyone else and I hated myself. And I've got to a place now after many years of deep work around that where him and I are good. We're better than fucking good. He's still alive. He lives in Greece. I miss him when I'm not with him. But that's taken a lot of years to get to that.
Did he apologize?
No, not at all. And I'm gonna tell you even a story on that. I remember speaking with him. I don't know exactly how many years ago it was. It was probably like 11 years ago. And I was becoming I was really at peace even back then with him. And we were on the phone. I was telling him all the things that he did, all the things that I experienced from him. And his response was, what are you talking about? I never did any of that. I was a great father. I was always around. My father was gambling. My father was working 16 hours, 18 hours a day. My father was doing, fuck knows what he was doing outside of the relationship. I'm pretty certain about all of that because he shared some of that. Like but you know what I did in that moment? I mean, a few years earlier, I probably would have got really angry, but in that moment, I laughed and I said, I hear you. Because he's not going to ever get it. And I've got to accept that, or I just got to keep being angry about it. Like, what's going to feel better?
Yeah. It's interesting. Because don't you want to know? Like, don't you want him to apologize and
forgiveness is an inside job.
And know what he was going through at the time and sit down with him and say, hey,
that's his work.
What was it?
Yeah.
Adler would say that's his work.
It is his work, yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's ideal. Sure, I'd love for him to.
And it would be the most benefit to him, not to.
Yes.
No. It would benefit the dad most, not Stefanos.
Yeah.
But you don't want to know?
Yeah, I mean, I do. Would I love for him to sit down and say, man, like I'm so sorry, and more actually less about the so sorry, but more so like what was happening for him. I'm a student of psychology, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons why I go down these rabbit holes and I work with people that experience extreme shit is because I'm very fascinated. So I'd be very fascinated to understand how he could beat his children that he loved and claimed to want more children, but my mum stopped at 2 or whatever. Like, I want to understand all of that, sure, but that's a fantasy because I can't rely on him for that to happen. And if I'm relying on him for that to happen, for me to feel peace or resolve within me, oh man, I'm suffering all day, every day, and I don't want to fucking suffer.
That's interesting because I'll give you my situation with the two dads that I was talking about.
So I'm assuming stepdad, biological
yes,
dads.
Stepdad
right?
and biological dads. Stepdads, let's see, parents were divorced when I was 2. Mom got remarried when I was 4. So he's been in my life for years and years and years. Great father, everything else. Shout out Jerry if you're watching, by the way. But
that's a rarity. You know that, right?
I do.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful, unbelievably grateful for him and the way that he raised me and all that other stuff, right? But with him, because we've had such a great relationship, if he passed away tomorrow, I have all the answers that I've needed throughout my life to where I and him probably, I don't know because he's not in the room obviously, but I feel like I can live the rest of my life and never wonder about it. And not think about it and have that take up space in my brain. Now, the other one, the dead father, which we did a wild episode about it one time. You were gone. And died in a hotel. It was fucking crazy, right? It was just one of those weird stories where you're like, oh, shit. And then you get a call at like midnight. And you're like, oh, fuck, right? I remember he called when I was on a road trip. And food was coming. There was a bunch of people, whatever. And I just sent it to voicemail. And didn't pick it up. I never got to get some of the answers that I really wanted to know in life. And it was just a couple, maybe 2 or 3 things that I was curious about in my own life. And I wish I would have picked up the phone that day, and that still bothers me to this day. And that's why I was asking it about you, is if you never got those answers from your father, would that live with you forever? Because for me, it's been 15 years-ish, somewhere in there, since he passed away. And I still think about it. I still have those questions. Like, there's still 2 or 3 questions that I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Maybe if I would have answered the phone and just asked him, you know?
Yeah.
Or he could have told me, hey, I'm not feeling well, or I'm sick, or whatever's going on. I would have had that answer too, and maybe he was calling to apologize. Who knows? But I still think about it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not going to bother you the rest of your life?
Yeah, the answer is I don't know, because he hasn't passed away yet. So maybe it will. The answer is maybe it will. At this point, no, I don't believe so, because I've grieved the death of my father, meaning, which sounds confusing, the death of the father I never had. And I've grieved that. And there's always going to be 2 deaths for us as kids, right? As adults, as people. Even if you had the idea, well, I shouldn't say for everyone, for most people, you'll need to grieve the parent you never had but wanted, right? And then you'll grieve their physical death. And how that tether is now severed in that way, the nervous system is severed, and you're not connected in that way anymore, right? I've grieved the father I never had, that I really wanted. You know, the availability that he couldn't give me, the kindness that I wanted more of, the guidance and the leadership and how he treated me. Like, I've grieved all that. So I'm at peace with all that. Now, in saying that, you're stimulating something interesting in me, because I'm going to see him probably in a few weeks. I've got some work in Europe, and I'm going to go visit, and I may actually ask him some more questions and see where he's at today versus where he was a year ago. You know, because I asked him some questions.
Because that's one of my biggest regrets is not asking. And you know, you don't expect people to die, especially he was pretty young. He was like 59. So yeah, I thought it was like, all right, cool, man. Maybe a couple of weeks we'll chat about this.
But there's possibly an element of fantasy that you're living in as well. That is keeping you.
I don't think it's fantasy, and I'll tell you why. The questions are very specific, and I would get a direct answer. Yeah. So it's not like something you were wishing for or hoping for. Yeah. It's this one certain thing, and then I would get those answers.
Can I ask why those answers or that exploration is important to you?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Yes, because it dates back earlier, ironically, to something like in childhood, where it goes back to something from like a senior in high school of like, hey, dude, this, like a will was changed or something like that, right?
And you want to understand why.
Right. And who and why, right?
Yeah,
so those are direct questions and answers.
How would that help you now? Or 15 years ago?
Great question. So take my stepdad, for example, and I hope he lives forever. And again, if he's watching, I love you, buddy. But if he passed away tomorrow, all of us are flawed, myself included. I get a shit ton of faults. Hopefully a little bit of positive, but a lot of faults, right? And with my stepdad's faults, I know personally why those were caused and what happened. I don't know that about my biological father who passed away.
How would that help you, though, knowing that? I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I'm just curious. Like, how do you feel that would help you?
Because I think as a parent now, going through some of the things that I'm personally going through now, I would have a better understanding of it, and I would be able to forgive easier or let go. And those are the only answers you can get from your father. And that's the problem, is once that's gone, there is nobody else. You could go and sit with a therapist all fucking day long, right? But there's specific questions that's either your dad or your mom can answer for you. And if you had them, at least me personally, then great, you could move forward and not think about it.
Yeah, I hear you. And this isn't about wrong or right, but part of that is because we pedestalize our parents. Like, think about this. Like, we're born into the world. We're totally helpless and hopeless, right? Abandonment is a construct of being an infant or a child, being incapacitated. Abandonment doesn't exist in adulthood. When we say, I feel abandoned, that's us speaking as if we're a child, because we're capable adults, right? So that deification of our parents, like, we look up to them as, they're everything. And you knowing that, like, you could actually get an answer on parenting elsewhere, but there's such a strong attachment to that it's keeping you in, if I only knew this, then I would be able to change. I would argue, right, I would posit, as opposed to using argue, I would posit that it's keeping you from growth because our egos love familiarity and don't like to change. And it's a convenient reason for you not to change or evolve or grow out of something and into something that serves you.
It's not stunting any growth that I have as a man or a human, like going forward. It is resolving what his issues were and understanding him as a person. So that's all I wanted, was the answers regarding that. I don't really care about the shit that happened, to be honest with you. I just want to understand what he was going through at that time, so that way I could have the answer as a father going forward, so I don't make the same mistake.
Well, I would say, and I totally hear that and respect that, man, as well. I would say that the behavior you're noticing about, or maybe the apprehension, fear you have around making the same mistakes, that can be remedied and resolved, not necessarily just only from your father. It can be resolved from, and this is the deification piece, like we pedestalize him so hard that we think, oh, he's the only one that can fix that or help me understand it or solve it for me. And even understanding is a form of distraction, because, and again, understanding is important, but it's a form of distraction from feeling. Because I would say that you are very capable of not needing to make those choices again, and it doesn't have to come from that source, from your father's source. It can come from this guy, it can come from someone you meet in the street, it can come from your wife, it can come from your own observation, it can come from whatever. Like, you don't need it to come from your father, but there's a very strong attachment to that. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying there could be something worth exploring there. Because here's the reality. Sorry, one more thing.
Yeah.
He's God bless his life, he's passed away. So you're never going to get the thing that you want. Don't you find that interesting?
I do.
Really want it.
And I know it. Yeah. I wish, I guess it's more of a wish, because I don't think about it every day. I'm not fucking stressed out about it. It's just a wish I'm a writer. I'm a big believer in finishing the book. So I just want that last chapter closed, and to understand what he was going through. And that's kind of it. It didn't impact me negatively or any of that other shit,
Not
right?
to get too woo-woo on you, right? But let me this is interesting what you just said then. Right? You really want to close that chapter. So
with everybody, by the way.
Yeah, sure.
Not just parents, but with everybody. Now, again, going back to the father still alive, I know all those answers. So if he passes away,
you feel good.
Yes,
you feel resolved.
I don't want him to, obviously, but I am resolved, and I think I know all the answers.
Yeah.
Even if Dan died tomorrow.
Yeah.
I would want to know the answers, because I don't. Like, I have no fucking idea.
So even
what answers?
That's the thing. Like
with you?
Yeah.
Needing to know answers.
That'd be a 9-hour show, but yeah. I mean, because I don't know who he is when he leaves the studio. The second he leaves, I have no idea. Sure. I have an idea.
So why don't you ask him then? Not now. I'm just saying, why don't you just generally ask him?
I think he says, get fucked, fuck right off, go fuck yourself. There's usually a middle finger involved. It won't flag me, I will say that, but he'll kind of tap the gun a little bit. Am I missing anything? Maybe a jack-off motion out the car. Yeah. And occasionally a double bird, which is a fun thing. But in all sincerity, with these little things in life, I think that's where that could potentially create trauma and things like that.
Why don't you sit down and call it a meditation, call it some quiet time, go sit on a cliff overlooking the ocean?
The noise is too loud in here right now that I can't. For real.
Just
because of business and stress and everything else, that it is too loud currently.
What do you want to do with that information exactly?
Me?
Yeah.
In regards to him?
No. In regards to your dad. Like, what do you want? So
I want to close that. I want to close the book on the person.
That's not an answer.
Well, but here's why I asked this. You have a lot of friends who have committed suicide. Mm-hmm. I, strangely enough, and this is non-military friends, I have a lot of friends who have committed suicide.
It's an epidemic, man.
So, dude, it got to a point where my wife was like, I had to fly to this funeral, and she goes, again? Like, who is this? And I was like, oh, it's the same people, and it's all people my age, and with them, it's all unresolved. Where it's not just a dad. I have 9 friends where I'm like, why the fuck did you do this? I just can't figure it out.
They suffer silently as well, man.
Right, but here's the other thing, too, is then you follow them on Facebook. It's not like you unfollow them, and it's then their wives start posting for them, and then you're up in the years, and I'm sure you're on this, too, with everybody who died in the military, where it's just this is the 1-year anniversary, 2-year anniversary of his death, 3-year anniversary of his death. Same things. The kids have questions, wife has questions, friends have questions, everybody else. If you had to just an end result where you were like, all right, I knew why you fucking blew your brains out or hung yourself, I think I would feel better about what the actions they actually took.
We do know why, though. The specifics in that scenario are not important.
We're
in my
too
opinion.
yeah, I agree. We're too attached to the detail because we believe that understanding and knowing it's a form of control, and we feel safe when we're in control. And what I'm saying is, get comfortable getting the fuck out of control. You've got to be out of control. And I just want to tie a loop or something because it's the way my brain works. I know you're busy at the moment. You're busy up here, 3 kids, big business, all of that stuff, doing great things. And maybe the answers that you want is like connect to your dad. Like in Gestalt therapy, there's something called an empty chair process. It's parts therapy, right? So I'm going to give you a very broad brushstrokes overview. I don't necessarily recommend everyone doing this, but I'm just going to give you an example. Get a chair, put a chair across, sit. It's a psychodrama. Sit in the chair, then as you are now, talk to your dad, then get up, go sit in that chair and talk as your dad. Connect to him spiritually or within your mind. You might be surprised some of those answers that the answers you're looking for may actually come to you.
My mom does that actually. God damn it, dude! It's like you know my fucking life.
I do
crazy.
have cameras all over your house.
Well, it's fine. Yeah, I know. You watched me this morning. That's fine. My stroke game was strong this morning, but
Very.
This effectively what you're doing is reducing things down to first principles, right? Because the human experience is the human experience. Our individual details of it might make it seem disparate from time to time, but for the most part, we're experiencing a combination of somatic and psychological, affects, I guess, from being alive, and that's just the way it is. So a guy, like over 24 suicides at this point, right?
a day.
No.
Oh, in your life.
Yes.
Okay. I'm at like 9.
Yeah. And one recently, our buddy John Brinkus.
Correct.
In the beginning, you do that. You get the bracelet with the little metal bracelet with their name on it, or you wear it around and whatever. And it took me a while to figure out why I was doing that. It's because what you're saying, I didn't understand why, right? But just spending a little bit of time thinking about it, I did understand why after a while, because the human experience is the human experience. Imagine yourself in the scenario that person was in, with the upbringing they had, and you can pretty easily connect to what happened, I think, right? Now, there might be individual details that you can't really visualize, I guess, like how could you possibly have done that? But I know what it's like to feel hopeless. I know what it's like to feel like my life has no value, right? And that's where it is. I mean, we're not talking about your dad. We're talking about
No, of course.
people that kill themselves. They think that this pain they're experiencing isn't going to end, and it's you can't get over it, so I may as well just kill myself. And it usually happens in a moment of 5 to 15 minutes of elevated emotions. That's usually how it works, right? That's why we try to teach coping mechanisms that create some standoff in that area. But
5 to 15 minutes, huh?
Yeah, like
Okay.
something that's why the face of a suicidal person looks just like everybody else, because they're dealing with the same bullshit that everybody else is. The problem is their underlying identity, right? Their underlying version of myself. I have no value. So we were talking to Derek White about a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like if you're operating from the first principle that you have no intrinsic value as a human being, then your life will hold no value to you, and you'll either take risk or you'll kill yourself. One of those two things will happen, right?
Yeah.
So I understand that.
And for us and our audience, and this is a long way to get there, but a lot of the trauma from listeners that they send in regarding I feel worthless, I'm broke, I'm maxed out on my life and credit cards and all this other stuff.
Yeah, been there.
My friend just killed himself. My everything else. Like, you want these answers that you can't necessarily get. And this is where I was going with all of this. And like then you got trauma. The trauma for I think a lot of people is the not knowing, and that's the final answer is to kill yourself and just
For
not,
many people, it
yes,
is, yeah.
and just to not deal with it anymore and move on.
I think the trauma is the expectation that you should know, right? Because again, like what you were saying before about your dad was, I don't want to make this mistake or that mistake, and if I understood it, I could avoid it. Well, you already know how to avoid it. You're doing it every fucking day with the way you raise your children now. So that piece of information that you think you need, you don't need.
That's the distraction.
Yeah. I look, I don't think about it a lot.
It's still going to be a curiosity, no matter what.
It's
right?
it's more of a curiosity, right? It's where my friends, you know, and I'm sure the same way with Dan's friends too. You're just like, man, what the fuck? Like, why? And again, all those people, and then you think about, they have no end chapter to their book either.
Well, think about your experience 5 years ago before I got you hooked up with Gabe.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So it's like...
it was unexplainable.
Like, this is the real danger, I think. Everything... like, when your life is fucked up, being depressed is I mean, you can kind of contextualize it. But when things are more or less going okay and you still feel like shit every day, like you're worthless and you're doing the right things, you still feel worthless, that's a real problem.
Yes.
Right? That's when you start to isolate, because you look, instead of like negative things impacting your life, nothing is impacting your life and you feel useless. And then you as a normal human being, right, as probably a good human being, you don't want to spread that shit to other people. So you start to isolate and then you lose everything at that point. Once you decide to isolate, it's over until you decide to save yourself, because nobody can save you from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's what happened. You actually asked me for help.
Oh yes, yeah, I did. And a lot of people don't. I went to Dan and asked for help, and I said, "Hey, dude, I cannot figure out what's going on right now." Was in one of the most positive fucking places in life, like success and all that other shit, and everything was great. And I was like, "Man, I cannot figure this fucking out." He told me what the answer was, and I went and got tests done, and yeah, it was Dr. Frank who ended up saving my life and Dan, to be honest with you, because my wife didn't know, my parents didn't know, and fuck, man, it was wild. It was a weird period of time, and then over the course of 3 to 4 months, it just changed overnight. But with you, what do you recommend? Like, if somebody is feeling like that out in the audience today, suicide or I'm not good enough, what are the steps that they can take just on their own at home to try to prevent that?
Yeah. So again, it's worth mentioning that sometimes the way through is actually really simple. It's not super complicated, right? It may be complex, meaning there's layers to it, but it's not super complicated. So sometimes you're just looking at our lives and saying, okay, I need some more physical activity. I need some more sunshine. I need to just look at the way I eat, the way I do my daily habits, and beginning to make really small changes in our lives can have a really big impact. But the most important thing, man, is, and why so many of these men are committing suicide, is because they feel isolated and alone, and that's their story and that's their reality. And then they're reinforcing their story by actually pushing people away. And the most important thing is to be surrounded by people that can meet them with care and non-judgment and call them forward to be better versions of themselves. People don't have support systems, man. I'm a big believer of one of the reasons, like fire, eating meat, all the things, discovering psychedelics or edible substances that are psychotropic and so forth have evolved us. But one of the greatest points of our own evolution have been through learning to regulate ourselves and feel connected in relationship to another human, actually being seen, understood, heard, loved, appreciated, and that being reciprocal, and that feeding a big part of it. I believe that's evolved us to where we are today. It's been a massive component, not just the physical stuff. And so when we look at, or even when we look at blue zones, right? We look at people living, the centenarians living to 100 years. One of the biggest factors is their level of authentic socialization that they have. Yes, it's getting in the ocean and eating clean foods and olive oils and healthy fats and all that shit. And it's socialization. So when we're looking at suicide, man, it's so paramount that we have a support network. And we may have to, there's a point that comes with every person, and we have to dig really deep and go and pursue that. But sometimes we're at a point in our lives where everything is despair, everything. And so I think then, as friends in each other's lives, we maybe get to slow down a little bit and check in on people. Like I think it's, I can't remember her name, it will come to me, but she's a prominent psychologist. And she will say, hey, if you're the more regulated human in your relationship in that moment, then it's your responsibility to be of support of your partner in that moment. You can check in with each other. Like, you can give a percentage, like, I'm 50% regulated right now, I feel okay. Or I'm only 10%. Well, I got you. maybe we need to check in on our peers and our friends a little more. I'm not saying you're responsible for everyone's life. It's not about that. You can only do so much, but slowing down enough to actually be present to that. Right?
You know what's interesting? Yeah, you say that was with the friends that I've committed suicide. Like, dude, I started reaching out randomly to older friends that I hadn't chatted with in years, just on like a long drive or something like that, out of nowhere, and then they freak out. They're like, the last guy I called, Derek, if he's listening, last guy I called Derek, he goes, "Holy shit, who died?" And he's like, I haven't talked to you in like 5 years, and I go, "I know. I'm just calling to check on you. How are you doing?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah." We ended up talking for like an hour and 20 minutes.
What does that tell you?
2-hour drive.
Like,
it was
you know what I'm
awesome.
saying?
It was
Yeah.
like for real, and like I started doing it more and more. And
Well, you know, maybe it's, I don't know if it's ironic necessarily, but the odd thing about it maybe is that it does more for you than the person you're checking on typically, which should tell you something, right? One,
That
that
we
we
needs are as well.
are communal creatures is one, and two is that when a man feels worthless, he doesn't need a pat on the back. He needs a job to do, right? I've said that for a very long time now. If one of my buddies calls me and says I'm feeling worthless and this and that, or I'm not good enough or whatever, I think a reasonable way to respond to that is you might not be right now, but that's the way you say it.
I fucking love that.
Yeah,
man. I love that.
like right now or for now or whatever you may not be, and it does one specific thing. It creates a choice. Now this person has a choice to get better, and what having a choice does is it returns you your agency and value, right?
It doesn't create, I fucking love this, man, but it doesn't create absolutes.
Mm.
So just because you're feeling like that now, that's okay. So it gives it also compassion and you're hearing relatability, and it also tells them inadvertently, oh, I don't actually have to feel like this. This doesn't have to be permanent. That's power.
And dudes need to be challenged by other dudes. It's a big thing.
100%.
That's why I actually tweeted
100%.
this last night. My favorite relationships, mostly throughout my life with other men, have been ones that was like, that started this way, fuck you. Oh, no, fuck you. Like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right, I guess let's go get a beer or something. You know what I mean? But it's silly to think of it that way, but that's really how we operate.
Because I think you're getting someone that's real and that can be more trusted
Yeah.
because they're being real.
Yeah, you pull back all that layer of bullshit and understand that person's just like you. And again, back to the parent thing. Think of yourself as a parent now. We're all idiots, right? It goes in both directions, by the way. We were talking about this earlier. All the shit that you think you were getting away with as a kid, you didn't get away with shit. Your parents knew everything. They heard every fucking thing you said. When you were playing in the other room and you were supposed to be asleep, they heard the whole thing.
Well, I know that now.
You know it now, right?
Yeah. I didn't know it then.
But
I know
also,
it now.
But also, you know now how fucking dumb you are as a human being. Like, we're all dumb as shit. We're all making mistakes all the time. And then map that back onto your childhood. You thought that person was invincible. And now you have context for that. So if you're reaching back into the past to try to understand why dad or mom fucked up about something, the answer is obvious, because they're fucking retards, just like we all are. We fuck up sometimes. But as a child, this was your hero and they fucked you over. At least that's what you thought.
The deification.
Right?
Yeah.
And you've carried that into your adulthood. But now you know that that's not true. You know that they were just a person that was tired.
Right.
Or whatever.
Stressed or whatever it is.
But that left, it doesn't erase the fact that it left a deep imprint on you. So you have to go through the process, like he's saying, of like the specifics of it don't matter. The logic does, right? That's what your somatic system will respond to, is logic.
And so in regards to trauma and suicide and all that other stuff, because again, this is a huge topic with our audience and me in particular, just because it's been going on. This was brought up to me, and I wanted to ask you about it by my buddy Derek, actually, who I reached out to years and years ago, which is why I reached out to him, because it was a mutual friend of ours that had killed himself. And he was searching for answers the same way, right? So like, man, I still can't figure this one out. And then another friend of ours killed himself. And I was like, Jesus Christ, man, what is going on here? And with that, the pattern that I'm noticing is it's a lot of men in their 30s, typically with children, and families and things like that, and then that's when they're doing it. Are you seeing a pattern in suicides at all? Obviously, coming back from overseas, we all understand that. Or the trauma that a EMT or firefighters or police officers go through. God damn, dude, on a daily basis.
I don't think the broader public does understand it.
They do not.
And it isn't the trope of your buddy dying in your arms,
right, or
the almost dying or any of that stuff. That's not what it is.
Nope.
It is a hardware problem, right, with traumatic brain injury and low testosterone. That's number one. 83% of the people that have self-reported suicidal ideation have low T, 83%. That's too much to ignore, right?
Yep.
And the second thing is that it's contextless trauma, right? Like we don't understand why we're fucked up. I don't care about that shit that happened, right? Like my buddy's dead and that sucks, right? It's not that I don't care about that, but it's like me having to do certain things. So another big part of it is what they call the moral injury, right? And people usually kind of contextualize moral injury as I had to do some shit in war I didn't want to do, that I feel like it was immoral. That's the minority situation. The majority situation is survivor's guilt, right? Where these men who I idealized, because you do when they're your buddies in war, some of them got killed and it should have been me. That's the way your brain thinks, right?
Yeah.
And that becomes a core part of your identity that strips away your personal value, because every day you're telling yourself, excuse me, that it should have been me. I'm not enough, obviously, right? Like this person would have been better than me, or whatever the case is, right? You're telling yourself what I think Adler calls, is it private logic? I think it's called private logic. It's something that only you believe. It's what I was talking to Derek about a couple weeks ago. It's not true. Like if you ask the people, certainly your kids and wife don't think that you have no value, right?
Yeah.
That's stupid, right? That alone is proof that this stupid thing you believe is stupid, right? But it does carry with you, and it's a big problem for people. It's a big problem. So you've got this hardware issue that if you don't repair, your software issue cannot be repaired. I'm telling you that, right? You've experienced it now.
Yeah.
And then with the software issue, what you're dealing with, we just addressed it with going back into your childhood. That thing that happened was probably the result of mistake, not intent, for the most part, for most people, right? 85% of people, it was mistakes and not intentional abuse.
Yes.
For the most part. And then it's on the adult side for us, military veterans, a big part of the survivor's guilt thing, right? Where you're constantly being told by yourself as part of your core identity that you're not enough, and it's not true, right? And even if it were true, you have a choice to make yourself enough. So you have to attack these illogical things inside of you, whether it's a somatic response that needs to be regulated or whether it's a core belief that needs to be regulated.
And for the audience, by the way, the reason I'm agreeing with him on this is having the honor of writing Matt Best's book with him. I got to hear all of these stories, and he had both. Survivor's guilt, and also what you had to do when you were in that moment in war, that regrets that you had. What do you tell people now who are in their 30s or maybe just coming back from overseas or just normal everyday life that are going through struggles, hardships, all that other stuff? What do you tell them to deal with trauma? Because the other thing that I find in this age group is you don't really gain a lot of new friends in your 30s. Like, you just don't. Most of them are from college or from high school. You're maybe lucky to pick up 5 along the way after a certain age, but that's kind of the max number, 5 to 7 after that. And I know mine. Like, I know my 5 and 7 right now. Other than that, no, I've never picked up a real friend beyond that 5 or 7 group there. So you don't really have a lot of people to talk to. Like, what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, talking's it's a solid starting point for a lot of people, right? Just having someone to be heard. I mean, to hear you, I should say. So just being witness in the fullness of ourselves, you know, whether we're angry or sad or just saying the things that we're truly feeling and being witness and just someone saying, yeah, I get what I hear, I feel you, can go a really fucking long way. And I'm not an advocate for repetitive talk therapy. It has a place. It has a place in the healing process or the transcendent process of moving beyond versions of ourselves that we no longer value and want to be. But it's not the be-all and end-all.
Yeah, can you imagine somebody that broke their leg as a teenager and they're 40, they're still wearing a cast? Like, what happened? Like, I broke it. When?
Yeah.
When? Oh, I was 18.
Yeah, I was 18 years
like,
old.
What
You get it, right? You're 49. You're 49,
Jackass.
dude. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, that's important. But that witnessing is very, very valuable, again, for our nervous systems. You know, and a couple of things I would add to what you shared, and man, I resonate so deeply with it, is possibly as well, you know, the survivor's guilt piece is probably reinforced. The survivor's guilt at some level is rooted in, at some level, worthiness, and that's probably being reinforced by stuff that happened earlier in our lives, right?
Like you're trying to contextualize, well, how could something, I think I'm a good person, how could something bad have happened to me? Why would somebody do something bad to me? And your brain goes, oh, because I shouldn't be here, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's fucking stupid.
I know.
By the way.
Of
but
course,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
it's
hard
irrational.
thing
But
to
it happens.
rationalize.
It happens it happens really rapidly.
Yeah,
Something.
and it happens often.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
small, like for people, especially people who are trapped in that stuff, something small happens, right? That straw that breaks the camel's back that we talk about, something small happens, they spiral, and over the course of about 10 minutes, they decide to kill themselves and do it. That's how it happens.
Yeah, it happens often, it compounds, and then it forms this, what we believe to be a permanent part of ourselves. And so addressing the core wounds, my wife gives a really cool example of, let's just say you're looking for a thin gold chain that you have in your drawer, and you get it out and it's full of knots, and you try and undo these knots, and all the knots they're just not going anywhere. You're there for like 10, 15 minutes, but then you get that one knot, and that one knot, all the other knots undo, and now you've got a thin gold chain just open. Trauma, or the original core wounds, is similar to that. Sometimes when we address, and again, there's various ways to address it, moving it through our bodies, animating it, getting it out of our system, being witnessed, talk therapy is part of that. There are many other processes and modalities. But undoing that original knot actually frees us from the stories we keep telling ourselves that perpetuate a version of ourselves we just don't like and love anymore. Because so many of us, man, we have low self-esteem that's masked and compensated for in various ways. I would say every soldier I've worked with, every elite athlete I've worked with across multiple disciplines, at some level has experienced a version of themselves that they've believed is not enough. And in their mind, they're like,
Even at the height of their success?
fuck, absolutely.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
in their
imposter
mind-
syndrome.
Yeah.
Right.
And in their mind, they're like, fuck you, world, or fuck you, specific person, fuck you, dad, whatever. I'm going to show you how good I actually am. Now, not every fuel source that motivates that level of achievement needs to come from trauma. It just sort of does. But it doesn't have to continue. And the fear is, and this is why we latch onto the familiarity or the trauma still, the fear is that if we're not living from that place that originated our great success, money, fame, etc., whatever, then are we going to continue to be successful? The answer is a resounding yes, it's possible to continue to be successful, and even better. But we just don't know, we don't believe it because we're so familiarized with living from that place of deficit and wound.
But what if you don't have the answers?
You don't need the answers. Most of the time, you just need to feel shit. In other words, you just need to be really truthful and meet yourself where you're at. And shit just dissipates. It's like that old adage of the buffalo, right? The storm happens, they huddle together, they move into the eye of the storm to get through it quicker. When we're feeling discomfort and we're feeling that we don't have the answers, just sit in the discomfort. Don't try and look for an answer, because that's a distraction. Just sit in the discomfort, feel it. But we're so scared that that's a paradox, that it's going to stay with us forever. It
Right.
doesn't.
Because in that discomfort, you're wondering, is this ever going to go away? This is
Wrong
there a
question to
light?
ask.
Yeah.
Wrong question to ask. And I'm guilty of that. I'm the same. Like, is this ever going to fucking go away? And in the moment you're in that judgment, you're in contraction. So you're in more fear. So you have no capacity to fully feel the thing. You're only feeling it a little bit. And then it's just going to keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. Be with it. But that's the courageous hero's journey. Be with the thing. That's what Joseph Campbell speaks to. That's what every movie speaks to. Go through the gauntlet. Don't dip your fucking toe in and then come back and then have a peek and then go into it. And what happens. Like, that's the surrender. That's the DMT you're speaking to. That's the death experience. You've got to die 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. And the more you die, the more comfortable you get with it. And every time you've died, right? And you have, every time you've died, have you come back a better, different person?
Yeah. I mean, when you do it intentionally, sure. Yeah, that's the
my
point. I mean, that's
you got to be deliberate.
Yeah,
and intentional.
it definitely gives you DMT specifically, in my experience, will force your brain to ask and answer questions that you refuse to ask and answer, because we have this idea of the answers we want. So and so kills themselves. We want to know why, but that doesn't matter. Why they did it doesn't matter. Like what they were thinking in the moment doesn't matter. What matters is the mechanics of that situation and how to prevent it in yourself and other people, right? And we already know the answer to that, right? So this, in my opinion, the obsession over the why is because we haven't processed the emotion. It has nothing to do with the information. It's because you haven't sat in and processed that information yet. You have to, like, I don't know what your situation with your dad is, but this is just a random situation. Something happened, dad did. It makes it seem like he didn't care about me, but there's other evidence that suggests he does. How could he not have cared about me in that moment, right?
Yes.
That's not real. You know as an adult now that sometimes you're fucking tired, or sometimes life is fucked up, or something happens. And even if he did intentionally do something, it has no comment on your person, right? Your value as an individual has no relationship to how anybody else treats you. That's not how life is, right? Your value as an individual is based on what you use your individuality to do to help other people. Right?
Yeah, and by the way, this is not something like that I harp on or think about or anything else. Like, for real, I think I know what the answer is, so I'm fine. I just wish I would have picked up the phone that day.
Yeah,
you know
it
what I'm
sounds
saying?
like it's more curiosity.
It is curiosity. Now there's other people, friends of mine, who've killed themselves. Where I'm just like, man, what the fuck, bro? And then it lives forever, and this is why I really want to go back to this. Is like a friend of mine's, the one friend of mine that I was telling you about earlier, his wife called me, and this was 8 years later. I haven't seen her in 8 years. She's called out of the blue, and she just said, "Hey, what's up, dude?" And I'm like, "What's up, man?" I'm like, how are you? How's everything? I follow her on social media, and you feel like you know everybody via social media, right? Where their Instagram's happy, their pictures are happy, and all this other shit, like, for real. And I'm like, "Yo, what's up?" And she's like, "Why did he do it?" I mean, 8 years later, and I'm like, "Fuck." And I go, I was honest. Like, she caught me in a weird moment, so I was just like, I was going through some shit myself, and I was like, you know what? I think he thought he was going to be a failure or let you down and the kids down or something else. And I go, I truly don't believe it had anything to do with you or the kids itself. It was just this own fear of failure and letting people down.
So think about the danger then of telling people that failure is an option in that way, right? Because if you look at the buffalo metaphor, right? This is a real thing. Buffalo actually do this. It's not like made up. There's a lot of ways to navigate the obstacles in your life. You can go around them sometimes. You can avoid them altogether, I guess. You can go in the other direction.
Sometimes you need to choose one of those.
Yeah, sometimes you got to do something else. But for the most part, the most important thing you can do is not quit, right? That is something that is taught through resilience. So you mentioned helicopter parenting before, rushing to the child's side every time there's something small that happens, and you teach them to catastrophize, right? And that makes victimhood part of their core identity over time. And then when they get into a situation, I'm not saying this is true of your friends or anything, and their parents, I have no idea, but when people get into a difficult situation, they are more likely to do what they have observed being done or what has been validated in their personal life. So you know this now as an adult dad, probably not with Birdie so much because she's a fucking psycho, but if one of the other kids falls down and gets a scrape, the way that you respond to it will determine how they respond to it for the most part. If it's severe pain, they're going to have a reaction, and based on their personal constitution, they're going to have different reactions as well if they're more sensitive or whatever. But if you meet them at their emotional level, they're going to maintain that emotional level, right? If you meet them at a regulated emotional level, it will pull them in the regulated direction.
And that's what me and my wife do, which is great, about our relationship and everything else. A lot of people don't do that, and that's what's causing, I think, this generation of what it is.
Why do you think, why else in one generation, anxiety goes through the roof all of a sudden? I'm sure social media and looking at yourself in the mirror all the time has a big part of it, but the way social
comments, reading the comments, all the shit.
Here's the difference. I'm 15 or 20 years younger than you, I guess, but
that's not true at all. That's crazy.
My generation
just turned 34.
My generation grew up without and then with the internet, right? And we experienced it as teenagers into college, just like everybody else did. It wasn't like 7 or 8 years old, but early teen years into the college era, I was on the internet doing stuff. So during my so-called formative years, I had the same opportunity to get fucked up by this as everybody else, but my generation, the one that are in their mid-40s now, has quite a bit less problems in that regard than Gen Z, especially, but it's even the younger millennial generation, right?
Well, I think Goatsy really calmed it
down. Goatsy did not calm me down.
It made us resilient, I guess.
Yeah, well,
but we experienced both with and without, right? So we had. I think it's a good test ground to show that alone is not the problem. Social media itself is not the problem. It is also a reflection of how we raised people to deal with the conflict that happens in their life. Being able to, I've said this a million times, the perfect time to be calm is when no one else is, right? That is a fucking superpower, and that is something we should train all people to do, men and women, from a very young
Learn
age.
to regulate your nervous
Yep.
system is what I'm hearing you say,
Yep.
and under various conditions.
And there's only one way to do it, right? The only way to do it is to allow them to face adversity and then coach them through that. Not coddle them through it, coach them through it. It's not the same
and by
thing.
being regulated yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, and my wife and I are very deliberate in how we have those conversations. And again, man, I'm putting my hand up, like my reactive patterns at times. And again, most of the time I push those reactive patterns away. I work with them so that I don't be reactive. My wife's really good at this. Like, she lets her do her thing. She stays super calm if she's, falls and is bleeding from here. And for the most part, I'm the same as well, because my daughter in that moment doesn't need to experience our concern or our future projected, oh, do I have to take her to the hospital? Is she going to be okay? Do I really want to? She doesn't need to feel all that. She just needs to know that we're good, so she can learn to regulate and self-soothe herself. That's it. And doing it at a physical level it draws a parallel to the psychological as well. It's like when she's having a hissy fit about something, or she's having a tantrum, right? It's like, oh, tell me more about that. Like, we're not having a tantrum with her. I'm not getting frustrated with her. That's not going to help her. That's just going to reinforce her anger and her agitation. Doesn't teach her how to actually move through stuff.
Yeah, she's going to meet you at your emotional level at that point, which is not helpful if you're dysregulated. Yeah. And then, the caveat is some kids are more sensitive than others.
For sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The tabula rasa, like blank slate stuff, that's not real. They're like, wolves know they're wolves, man. Genetic memory is a real thing. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there are certain things that you do instinctually, right? And when we're born too early. Human beings are born 18 months too early or some shit like that, because our heads would get too big and we wouldn't be able to make it out. Yeah. So
Can't get through that vagina.
We're born super early, right? Yeah. Maybe it's just a year. I don't remember the exact number, but
I think it's around that.
Yeah, we're useless when we come out. A puppy in a couple of weeks is running around. A kitten in a couple of weeks is running around. Monkey to some degree is a little bit less useful in their early stages, but babies are fucking useless. You can't. At what point do you think you could reasonably take care of yourself? And I mean, in the most extreme situation, maybe 6 or 7 years old, you could figure out how to do food and water and shit.
Yeah, maybe.
But not shelter.
Maybe.
Right? Not shelter. Well, there's kids in the streets in third world countries that survive in that regard, right? So that at the earliest, but not for the first 4 or 5 years.
No,
You're fucked,
it's impossible.
Right? So
impossible.
That's a lot. That's a lot to deal with, right? And you just. I understand. I feel for parents. I like Louis C.K. used to tell this joke about how before I had kids, I was like, they're never going to eat fast food. They're never going to watch an iPad. And then I had kids. I'm like, well, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Obviously we've got to find some kind of way to deal with this shit.
I'll talk to you about that. And I'm not throwing any shade or any judgment on any parents at all, because being a parent, I know. For so many reasons. I've only got one, right? Having 2 or 3, I don't know, maybe they entertain each other, I don't know, but there's challenges with everything, right? Is to this point, she doesn't get iPads and TV and any of. She has not watched a TV movie, nothing yet. There's no, but we're very deliberate around that. And let me just tell you how fucking challenging it is. How challenging it is to hold that line from a developmental perspective, because we understand and believe that the healthier she is during these very critical years, the more equipped she becomes, the more resilient she becomes actually later on.
Yeah.
It sets a really solid foundation.
And if I were you, since she doesn't watch a movie or anything else, I keep that going until she's 18 years old. And then pop on the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre as our first movie ever.
And then let's see how it goes.
And say, enjoy the world.
Make it so she's like a 1920s movie audience that thinks the train is coming out of the screen.
Yeah. And then, boom, show her the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then just walk out of the room, give her $2,000 and say, good luck.
Just 2,000?
Yeah.
Only 2,000?
Just $2,000 and say, good luck. Good luck. You're 18. You got to get the fuck out of here. You're good.
Look, in all fairness, she has watched a little bit of 1970s and 1980s Sesame Street, because all that shit's not too fast and doesn't flicker so fast.
That's funny. Bob and I talk about all the time.
Minutes.
The hard cuts in this shit.
Yeah, it's fucking poison,
we
man.
nuts,
Poison.
dude.
But it keeps them addicted to it. That's the whole point.
Yes.
And it's messing with a brain that's developing. Man, I don't claim to know enough about the brain. I don't think modern science knows enough about the brain, right? We understand some level of, keep social media away as much as you can, keep screen time to a minimal as much as you can. But do we really understand the effects of this? I don't think we're going to know the effects for another 20 years or so.
I don't think so either. And then to that point, real quick here, because we'll get out of here after this. But I took my kid to see F1 last night with Brad Pitt.
Oh, awesome. Was it good?
My God, dude.
It's good.
So you got to go in IMAX. Go immediately. I've never said this about
they
any
spent
other.
a lot of fucking time and money on this.
Oh
right?
my God, dude. And I, for 2.5 hours, me and my 11-year-old,
Yeah.
you want to talk about hard cuts and fast cuts and everything else. I felt like I was in the goddamn car in IMAX. It's all fucking going around me.
Awesome.
And like the beauty of it was I look at, because I'm from a Hollywood background, I looked at the runtime immediately, right? So, because I want to know what I'm dealing with my child. Where I'm like, yo, this is 2 hours and 40 minutes.
There's a limit, yeah.
And certainly.
Yeah.
And I was like, I go, dude, I told him, this is 2 hours and 40 minutes and we're going into this or whatever. And he goes, well, Dad, is there a lot of action? And I go, I don't know. I didn't read the scripts and I have no idea. And he goes, okay, I still really want to see it. And I was like, great. They took like 4 minutes off and showed like 12 fucking like real-time races. And like, my God, dude, my head was torn off. And like at the end, people were on the edge of their seat and started clapping like the fucking plane was landing. I was too. I got caught up in it and I was like, oh my God, dude. It's one of the greatest movie experiences of all time. Quick cuts, all this other crazy shit going on. It's loud as fuck. And like you're rooting for it. I teared up at the ends for Brad. I was like, holy shit, boners for Brad. Like it's one of the most incredible movie viewing experiences of my life. And I took my kid and we got in the car because the first time he's ever been silent after a movie because he loves going to movies and he just goes, I go, what are you thinking about? And he goes, just wow. Wow, Dad. He goes, Is it weird to say that's the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life? And I go, no. I go,
Oh, man, it's a big call.
My forearms, well, probably IMAX too. Like my forearms were gripping the seat, and like I was dehydrated at the end because I drank all the things, and I didn't have anything else, but I didn't want to get up. I was like, I can't miss anything in this goddamn thing. I'm in it, dude. I was in the fucking car.
You sold me.
And it was great. But with that, the last question I want to ask you is, on the way to the theater, he had a very serious question about some kid had told him about something I had said on a show or whatever. I don't let him watch these shows, all right? And it was about his bitch mom, and you know who you are out there if you're listening. And I, as a parent, he's 11, my middle is 6, and the other one's 3. She doesn't have any questions. 6-year-old does, but and that's fine, which we'll get to. I have a policy with my kids that I'm going to be, my wife is the same way, is honest about everything as I can possibly be, even if it's a fault of mine or a not of mine. Is that a good thing? Because what I've found is there's only 2 questions with my kids, having 3, that I can't answer. Where do you go when you die? And then what happens to you after that? And I don't have those answers, obviously, because I'm still here. Everything else, though, I'm under the policy of like, you know what? I'm going to tell you the honest truth about all of this. Obviously not sex and reverse cowgirl or anything like that, but because that's my personal thing. We've all got our own sexual techniques, and I don't want to drop those here. I teach a class at UCLA that's already booked for the fall. But is that a good policy for parents with children?
Yeah. So firstly, I'm going to say that I'm really in no position to tell you how to parent, and I genuinely mean that. And in fact, I would say I'd probably lean on you for a lot of, not necessarily parenting advice, but insights. Because
so far so good on that honesty thing, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you wonder if you're being too honest.
Yeah, so I'll say, I think the way that I would best respond to that is some people, what's that movie with Jack Nicholson, You Can't Handle the Truth, right?
Yeah.
Some people.
A Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men, right?
Yeah, he was the hero in that movie. Colonel
sure
Nathan
was.
Jessup's the hero. Get your weak ass the fuck off my wall.
That is always how I've looked at that movie, dude. Always. Since watching it is in the theater as a kid, where I was like, that's the fucking motherfucker. Yes, that was the guy that was right. Fuck Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
You wanted the answer?
You don't really get to say fuck Tom Cruise much.
You can't.
Because he's
That's
such
right.
a fucking legend.
But it was the character that he was
Yeah.
playing. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
no, I get
But
you.
I was all on Jack's side on that one of like, you can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You come down here. And
That's
you
not
want
bad.
to fucking, well,
That's true, by the way. That speech should have been played in every high school
everything.
from then until now, and we wouldn't have these problems.
Military
we have right
life,
now.
all of it. Like, I mean, there is some speeches that need to be played forever. And what's the speech as a parent about honesty? Is like, so far so good on this tip, right?
Well, yeah.
But-
So what I mean, but what I mean is like it's also how the honesty is presented, whether you really truly believe that the mind,
I do.
of the mind of that 11-year-old can actually hold that, and like, you get to, as a parent, you just get to discern what level of truth and how you want to express that. And I think that's for everyone, like any relationship, man. There's nothing, see, there's expressions of truth. Like there's not to say that you can't be truthful and you shouldn't be truthful, but some minds are immature and they're developmentally not ready to hold big ideas or big things. And so the way that, you go on ChatGPT, explain this to me like a 3-year-old. Or what the presidential campaign that wins the best is the one that's written to the language of the lowest age. Like you speak to a 5-year-old and your opponent's speaking to a 9-year-old, chances are you're going to win as you're speaking to a 5-year-old. Like, so there's simplicity in how we present the truth, right? So you may not have a conversation around quantum physics with your child, but you may say the principles of quantum physics in a different way. So it's not that you can't be truthful. I believe you should be truthful, and that's really healthy. But how you present it really matters. Who's your audience, basically? Choose your audience.
Okay. Interesting.
But that also puts a power in your, like you get to be more discerning about that.
You do.
That's a good thing as a parent.
You do. And I look at this other parent who said this to their kid, and then that kid told my kid, was just like, it was a fucking 9/11 joke that Dan and I had told. I'm not kidding. And I was like,
I would never say something like that.
no shit. Especially the kid's 11.
Oh, no, I actually do make 9/11 jokes all the time.
To an 11-year-old?
Yeah.
I do.
They don't know. Well, I mean, not really, because they don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Well, whatever, right? And like, I just thought it was so fucking inappropriate for this woman to tell her kid that. And I was just like, I don't let my kids watch that shit. Like the fact that you do or said something and everything else, I was like, man, fuck you to the nth degree. But yeah. So I told him, I was honest with him. I go, this is what I said. Here was what the context was. And here's
context matters.
Exactly.
Man. Context
and
matters.
so it was weird. Like it clicked and he got it last night and it was the drive over to the movie theater. And we watched the movie together, never asked another fucking word about it. It was just like, okay, cool.
Because he probably felt you being truthful about it.
I did.
As well.
And I said, look, I will never lie to you.
Yeah.
If you ask me these questions, I'll tell you. I go, there's 2 answers that I can't give you. Where we came from and where we go after this. And those are the only 2. Everything else.
I think it's very telling that you pointed down when you said where we go after this.
Well, I was looking at the O.J. Simpson jersey behind you, so.
Yeah, I think
apologies.
The alternative is that he doesn't know and he thinks that you think his mom's a bitch.
The other kid.
No, Jax.
Yeah,
if he believes that you said that in earnest and you just dismissed him, right? Then he believes that you think that,
right?
Because that's what saying stuff means to a child, right? They don't understand irony or any of that shit,
right?
You got to be very direct.
Yeah, and I am. So
that's the only way you could possibly handle that.
Hopefully,
situation.
he took away from that conversation that kid's mom is a complete bitch, and like, all right, well. There's going to be Karens like that out in the world, and that's what it is.
Satire is very old and effective as a means of communication.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the most famous writer of all time, William Shakespeare, specialized in it.
Shakespeare?
Yeah.
Was it him or the ghostwriter?
Anonymous. Yeah. You
We'll never know.
You ever heard that theory?
No.
It was like, it was
Someone
like
else.
13 different people writing all the Shakespeare stuff. And
He had a writer's room.
Yeah, the reason that people actually believe it.
Dead serious.
Well, I mean, Patterson does. Not you, but the
same. Yeah. I come from a long lineage. James, everybody else.
He's written 80,000 books.
But by the way, it's benefited me because one of the shelf at Barnes & Noble were right next to each other.
Yeah, the reason people actually believe that theory is because he was so he was part of the court, English court, but he was so subversive to the crown. Like, how could you possibly have gotten away with this? Right. So people think that he was people think that he may have been a fictionalized character.
And the other part of this too is in a writer's room in Hollywood, but before all the writer strike bullshit and everything, it was that exact number. That's how many people used. So it was like there was 12 in every single room, and then the original, so it was 13, and you were like, okay. And then we worked off his script or idea or whatever it was, and then changed it, the 12 of us. Yeah. But like, yes, there is something to that. I will never know that answer either.
So at some level, right? Let's just say that's true. I mean, who gives a fuck? I mean, what is it, like a credit where credit's due thing, or is it this product was produced, it's amazing writing, it's changed the world?
That's what I've always said.
At some level, right? At some level.
I don't give a shit either. And like, same with music, and you think about Kanye, whatever you think, but he was like the first rapper to post like 13 different writing credits on songs and producer credits and all this other shit, where he was just like, dude, I'm not interested in like, I want to make the very best song that I can make. And like, cool, if these people get credits or whatever, I don't really give a shit. And give the money away to wherever it goes. And I've always enjoyed that. Same with Marlon Wayans, who was on this show. He's the writer in movies that did that as well with Scary Movie. You look at the Scary Movies, there's 13 writers listed where I was just like, oh, fuck. Finally, somebody did that, right?
Yeah.
So things like that. But anyways, I could talk your ear off for like 9 hours in like a Rogan sesh here, and we don't do that here because nobody has that time. Let's face it. Even if you go on Rogan, have you been on Rogan?
I have. My wife has.
Okay, your wife has
Yeah,
it. How long was the episode?
Oh, it was a decent amount, like more than two and a half hours. Something like that.
Yeah, and it's like past that point. I'm like, man, I'm at McDonald's right now. Like, I've got to make this order. I don't have time to listen to the rest of this shit. So we try to cap it at a decent level here just because people got shit to do. And to go back to the dad thing, you want a beginning, middle, and end of that fucking book just for the day. And then you can go on to the Monday episodes. So you're all good. Now's the point of the show. We get to the Drinking Bro of the Week, which is someone who has inspired you or helped you become the person you are today. Who would you like to give the Drinking Bro of the Week to?
My grandfather, my maternal grandfather. What a fucking legend. They don't make him like that anymore, man. He was in World War II. He got captured. He was fighting for Italy. He was fighting on that side, not with the Allies. They changed, partial the way through.
He's Greek?
He's Italian.
Oh, Italian.
Italian?
Yeah,
Either way, that would have been Axis, I guess.
Yeah, he got caught. He was in a concentration camp for 2 years. He survived that with all the horrors of that. He then came to Australia by himself, left my grandmother and my mother in Italy, worked hard for 6-7 years, made enough money to bring them over, started a life, but just a fucking animal of a man and the kindest, most compassionate human. Man, I fucking miss him so much. God bless him.
That's awesome. What
Yeah,
was
I
his
like
name?
that.
Salvatore.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Sal.
Yeah, I like that. It's people seem to think that kindness and masculinity are on opposite ends of some spectrum, but the phrase that I like is hand strong enough to kill a man and soft enough to hold a baby.
I love it, man.
Yeah. And again, appreciate everybody tuning in. From time to time, once a month, we try to do something serious for everybody, just in case you're going through some shit out there. And if you are, dude, know that we are as well. I know you see the lights and the seltzer and all the cool shit, but like all of us are still going through problems and struggling on a day-to-day basis, and it's not fucking easy. And although it looks it on screen, it's not. So if you are going through some shit, find a friend. Go to a Drinkin' Bros subgroup on Facebook. Reach out. Go to the app. The app is out there. There's 20,000 people on the app. It's free. Dan and I pay for it. Drinkin' Bros. It's available on iPhones and Androids and all that other shit. There is people in that app, too, who are having the same conversations that we are, and all of it is helpful. So whether it's the app or Facebook groups or anything else, feel free to reach out to everybody else. And then for you, where can people reach out and find you?
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I got my book coming out February 3rd with Hay House, and it speaks a lot to what we've touched on today and how to actually deal with trauma and face it head on, and survive it and thrive through it. Right, it's a big part of it. So you can find that at stephanosophandos.com/waitlist. Get on the waitlist for that, and then if you want to work with me, coachwithsteph.com and social media at Stephanosophandos.
Awesome. I tell you what, come back. You were fucking rad, dude. Come back before the book drops. Come back in January because that's when it's most helpful.
Awesome.
And then we'll continue this conversation because again, this show could have gone 5 hours today.
I appreciate it.
For real. So thank you guys for being here. Go to Spotify, rate the show a 5-star, and leave a quick review. Yes. We have video there. All the video is currently being uploaded as we speak. I just found out that they're doing thumbnails as well, the same as YouTube. So I've got to tell fake Ryan that. That's why. Yes, it is. So I got to figure that out. Just know that I've gotten your messages, and we will do that as well. We just signed the entire network with that across the board. And then go to iTunes, rate the show a 5-star, and leave a quick review. Advertisers still care about that. And then we've got a listener back there. Pop in right behind Bob there. Bob's got a microphone for you. Come on up, sir. Yeah. And you will close it out for us. I know we did a heavy show today, and then we'll keep it light with you because you look like a complete dirtbag, and I love it, dude. Yeah. Just keep that mic about an inch from your face. You know the rules here. What's your name?
Alex.
Alex.
I'll keep the last name kind of private.
Yeah, and I understand,
That's how most
Alex.
people know me.
Yeah, makes sense, dude. This show, Jesus Christ, man.
Actually, a little bit fortuitous. I ended up on this show because I had a similar conversation with my wife not too long ago Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Because we've been having a little bit of issues with our soon-to-be 9-year-old, and I'm kind of telling her to put the gentle parenting on the shelf a little bit, just because it's not working.
Yeah,
Got to make a decent human being somehow.
for sure. And how's that going?
I need to tame some of my wildness out of her a little bit,
Okay.
because she's
And what is your wildness, just out of curiosity? Drugs?
used to be
Boozing?
boozing.
Yeah.
Yeah, breathalyzer in the Jeep will let you know that real quick.
Now we're getting some fucking street gonzo shit, bro. All right.
I tried to avoid it, but didn't do a great job. Talking about trauma, actually, that stemmed from a night that didn't turn out super well. My daughter caught me and ended up talking to a friend. Didn't go great, but didn't go as bad as it could have.
Okay.
So,
Who do you want to give Drink Bro of the Week to?
not to be forever, but there's 2 that are gone and 2 that are still here.
Okay.
My brother CJ passed away in a motorcycle wreck 2019. Miss him, think about him every day. And then my cousin, who was basically my beau to Luke Duke growing up, he unfortunately killed himself about a year and a half after my brother passed.
Over your brother?
No, over trauma with his mother.
Okay.
And then my 2 living drinking bros is obviously my wife. Not to be too cliche about it.
Not at all.
She keeps me all 4 wheels on the ground. And then, unfortunately, she's leaving me soon. But my work partner, good friend of mine, Ariana Arce, she's moving away, going to leave the company I'm with. But every time I start getting crazy with a GC or anything like that, she's, hey, bro, calm down a little bit. Let's think this through properly and not going crazy. She's actually the one that kept me from the ledge that caused me my DUI.
Okay. And then what? Your wife is leaving you said?
No,
Is she going deployed?
No, my work partner, she's moving up
she's
to,
okay.
Coincidentally, she's moving to what was my hometown, not too far outside of Dallas.
Gotcha. We have a lot of people on here who are deploying. That's why I asked. So I didn't know. Forgive me. Well, thank you for being here, and we greatly appreciate it. Did you get some hard AF seltzer at least?
Yep, I tried to fix a couple of things while I was here because I didn't have anything like some guests bring a bottle of booze or anything.
Hey, you want to fix that back AC? We'd be grateful.
I tried to. I need a $15 part from Home Depot.
Okay. We'll leave the door open. Go get it.
I'll give you
$15.
Actually, I'll be back here at
Unfortunately, it's
6:30.
not in
Will you?
town. They got to bring it in, but let me know when it's here. I'll help you guys out.
Okay.
More than
Yeah.
happy. Anything electrical or carpentry, I can fix almost anything.
Shock wire.
How about that?
I needed a tall ladder. That's actually
Lloyd
one of the
Burke.
first.
God, Lloyd Burke. That motherfucker, dude. It's
That's
been
one
like
of the
that for
first
4
things I
years.
pointed out. I said, hey, if you got to
Yeah.
wait for me to get up there, I'll fix it. No problem.
Lloyd Burke. Just hit up Lloyd Burke for that. He did great work through the rest of the office, and then he fucking
Oh,
bounced
yeah.
off that.
As an
Just like-
electrician, he's done beautiful work.
He's
It's
done great.
work.
I'm not knocking Lloyd. I'm just knocking
Yeah.
that one fucking thing up there.
Well, I
That's
mean,
just
the
hanging
two
over
of
our
y'all are
heads.
tall enough. If you're willing to stand on each other's shoulders, I'm crazy enough to stand on both of y'all.
Look, I'm
shoulders.
kissing 6'4", and he's so what, 6'1", 6'2"? Like, no,
I'm like
6 foot.
5'10". It's perfect.
Yeah.
We're gonna need a cherry picker in here to get up there, though. I think.
No, there was a guy with a ladder, and he refused to do it. I saw that
Pussy.
motherfucker. It was it was the AC guy, and I was just
I
like,
say that my last job site, I didn't want to climb to the top of my 14-foot ladder at the same time.
I understand. I
It's
understand.
scary.
Yeah, I get it. I get
Sometimes
it.
you gotta.
He was scared.
Quoting Joe Rogan, you got to put your balls in a wheelbarrow and just do it.
No lie. This is what he said. He goes, "Do you mind if I go outside and call my wife?" I go, "For what?" And he goes, "I don't know if the ladder will hold or whatever. What I should do?" And I was like, "Oh,
What was he
God,
gonna do?
dude.
Say goodbye to her?
That's what I was gonna say. I was like,
fuck
"Hey,
are you talking about?
we were in
If I
an
don't-
old Pentecostal church. I go, call Jesus."
Yeah,
dude.
if I don't make it on this $200 job, it's been nice knowing you.
Yeah, what the fuck? So that's where we're at. But hey, man, it was a pleasure meeting you, and thanks for being here,
Great
dude.
to be here. Great
Yeah, so when guests are on and stuff like that, we'll bring them up behind there. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. We appreciate it. We appreciate you guys at home. For D'Anthony Holloway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros podcast. Good night, everyone.